What's going on, everybody? Here, and this is going to be part 4 of how to mod my PS1 console. Today, on this one, we're going to be showing you how to add LED lights. If you're looking to change the power LED light, I've already done that. That was part 3, so look in the description below, and there will be a link to go to part 3, and you can check that out there. This is going to be in the earlier parts, I was showing you how to cut out this window and add the plexiglass. So this is going to be the LEDs that are mounted underneath here, and then eventually wired to the actual power board. And yeah. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to need a multimeter again. You won't really need a multimeter, but this is just to show you how it's done and to give you an idea of where exactly everything's going to be wired to in part 5. So this is what we're going to have to do. We're plugging in this power board. If you didn't see part 3, be careful with this. Don't touch anything while this is plugged in, even if you've got it on or off. You can get shocked, and 125 volts of power going through your body is no joke, and it can stop your heart. So be careful. Don't touch anything except the very edges of the board while you're messing with it. You can also handle it back here and flip it over like this way. So anyways, what we're doing here is we're checking the voltage. Now, the voltage is the amount of power that well, let me reword that. The voltage we're checking is to see how much power is going to be pushed to the LED lights. Typically, LED lights are going to run from 2 to 3 volts each. So you only need 2 to 3 volts of power, and I think it's right around 7 volts. Now, if we have the whole console here, the power board's here, and the motherboard's here, and the laser sits on top, and there's a little ribbon that's right here, and it connects to this little white thing, and it connects the motherboard to the power board. How I'm going to do this and how I would suggest doing this is we're going to actually, when we connect the LEDs, we're going to wire the LEDs to the bottom of this board right underneath this connector, because that's a good solid power source, and it's one of the best ones you'll find on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the power on. As you can see, it's got the blue light from the first part, and we're going to flip this over as carefully as we can. I'm actually going to do it like this because this cable's a little bit weird. Alright, these 5 little connectors, there's 5 little dots right here. Those are the ones that are underneath that cable I was just telling you about. So we're going to pop the multimeter on, and what we're going to do is we're going to start checking each 5 of them until we find the right combination so we know which ones are which and which ones we're going to solder the LEDs to. Now, we're not going to do that until part 5, but I wanted to go ahead and get this out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just going down. If I can get this thing to quit visioning. Alright. I'm going to go down until I find the good power source. No power source there. None there. Alright, so let's switch this around. Let me make sure something here. For some reason it's not getting a reading. Hold on. Okay, so I just got one now, and what it is there's the 5 solder joints. You put it on the one that's closest to the front. This side is the front. You put one right here, put one on the back. If I can get it to quit moving. Alright, that's 7.7 volts if you look at the meter. 7.7, or 7.6. We're just going to say 7.7. Alright, so we got 7.7 volts, and that's what you got to feed off of. Now, the point of this is because you cannot run a 2-volt LED on 7 volts of power. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out the we're going to calculate the resistor that we're going to need. A resistor is basically, it dumbs down a power source to the correct power source so it doesn't blow out the LEDs. Now these LEDs, let me check. These LEDs are, well, I can't see it. Alright, these blue LEDs that I'm going to be using are 3.6 volts, and this power is 7.7. Now I'm going to put another link in the description on this video. It's called a resistor calculator for LEDs. And you go down and you put in your source voltage, which is going to be the 7.7 volts. You're going to put the milliamps, which on these is 20 milliamps. And then you're going to put in the actual diode voltage, which is the voltage of these run on, which is 3.6. And then it'll give you the correct LED, or the correct resistor. Now, they're generally the same, but it's going to depend on what voltage this is. So that's why I'm telling you all this. It's a lot to have to sit here and listen to me say. My words are not working out well for me today. But it is necessary so that you make sure you've got the right type of resistor for this. What's going on, everybody? This is the last segment of part 4. If that's not confusing enough. Here I've got 3 LEDs in my resistor. The resistor I came up with was supposed to be 220 ohms and a 1/4 watt resistor, but the closest I had was 270, so I'm hoping that that's going to work out without me having to run out and go buy one little resistor just for this showcase. So we're going to kind of hope. Now, I'm only using 3 LEDs. I would suggest using at least 4, no more than 8. Over 8 is really just a complete overkill, and it's just way more than you need, and can possibly even bog down the system because it's eating up too much power. But I'm just doing 3 here so we can avoid some of the time stuff. Now I've got 3 LEDs. I've got one of my resistors. You could do this 2 ways, where you have 1 resistor for each LED, but really you're just wasting a resistor, in my opinion. So, or 2, or however many LEDs you have, you really only need 1 resistor. So first what we're going to do, we're going to cut 3 pieces of wire. This is 24 gauge. This is about the smallest you can buy in a regular store. You can get smaller gauge, but it's going to be a lot harder to find unless you order it online. I'm going to cut about, let's say about 10 to 12 inches. So we're going to want 3 that are 10 to 12 inches long. Just like that. And then we're going to want 1 that's maybe about 3 inches, we'll say, 4 inches. Alright, first we're going to start off with this 4-inch one and go ahead and get this out of the way. This is what will be soldered to the power board and the resistor, and then the rest of the LEDs. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut this and splice it and everything. Splice it on each side, and go ahead and separate on each side. And this is new wire, and it's very stiff. That's weird. Usually it's got some play to it. This is stiff as a rock. Okay, I'm separating the little pieces now so that each end is separated. And I'm going to take some wire cutters and I'm going to strip it so that the wires are exposed. Just like so. And I do get wire that's marked. One wire has a white. That's going to be almost impossible to show you on this camera probably. But one piece of the wire is white, marked with a little white strip, and the other is just plain. Usually I use the one that's marked with the white as the positive, so I make sure to keep the positive and the ground separated. So I'm just cutting the rest of these now so they're all exposed. Now, that resistor, usually they come like this, so it's going to be real long. You can see it's just really tiny. I'm going to cut it down so it's about like that. Alright, and we're going to solder this to the positive wire. And that's why you want wire like that, so you can keep it all together. Now you are going to need, let's see, you will need some of this, and it's called flux. So what we're going to do is we're going to dip the positive side in that flux. This will make sure that the resistor sticks well when we solder it. Alright, let me get my helping hands here. My third hands, as I like to call it sometimes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the resistor in one of these clamps. That way it'll hold that for me. Let's see if I can move it to give you the best possible view. Now I'm going to make sure that I'm doing my positive side. And I'm going to line up the positive to one end of the resistor. It doesn't matter which end. Then I'm going to get me some solder on my soldering iron. And I'm going to go ahead and solder these two together. Alright. Now we're just going to put that aside for now. That's just to get this out of the way. Now we've got the LEDs. What we're going to do is we're going to cut down the LEDs because you don't need that much crap on them. Now what I do, one side is longer. If you can see that, you see how one prong is a little bit longer. When you cut them, leave the longer one a little bit longer when you cut them. I can't get a good angle here. But if you see one end is still a little bit longer than the other, that way we can still keep the positive separated from the negative. And we're just going to do that with all three of them. Just like this. Or however many you've got, because remember, you're probably doing a lot more than three. Alright. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to strip out these wires. And I'm going to shut it off for this so you don't have to watch me do all this. But I'm going to do the same thing I did to that wire I just did. I'm going to split each end of each wire, and I'm going to take my wire strippers, and I'm going to strip each little piece off. So I'll be Alright, I've got all three of my wires stripped here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start attaching everything to each LED. So with my helping hands, I'm going to put one LED in there. I'm going to get my wire. Now remember, the long end that you left on the LED should be attached to the marked end of the wire, which is going to be all of our positives. So I'm going to get my soldering iron and get some solder on there. I'm going to attach each wire. Oh, forgot a step. We got to put it in the flux first. We got to make sure and get flux on the wires here. So let me get some more solder since I messed that up. Alright. And I lost the solder. Alright, there's one side. Now I'll get a little bit more solder. Kind of doing this backwards here. Usually I've got everything going the opposite way. Alright, and there's one. Now I'm going to cut it off again. I'm not going to show you each individual one. So I'm going to do these other two, and then I'm going to cut it back on. Alright, I've got the LEDs finished up. So I've got my LEDs and then that one we messed with at first with the resistor on it. Now the last little part of this, we're going to put all this together and get it ready for the fifth and final part of this long tutorial. And that'll be it for this part anyways, for part 4. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to get all these wires together. Make sure you put all the positives together with the positives. And I'm going to kind of twist them a little bit right like this. And I'm going to do the same thing with the ground slash negatives. Just like that. Now, I'm going to take this one. Remember the resistor? We're going to attach the resistor, the other end that's not attached, to the positives. So I'm going to dip my wire here in my flux. Oh, way too much flux there. Alright. Get my helping hands back over here. I'm going to actually put the part with the resistor in there. Alright, so let's get the positives. We're going to attach it to the other end. Get some solder on my iron here. Okay, there's that. Now, because that resistor is going to be a little bit longer, so we're going to have to kind of bend it a little bit. I'm going to get some solder, and we're going to attach the negatives to the negative. Just like that. And that's that. And that's going to be the end of this part. Like I said, the next and final part is going to be the fifth part, and that's going to be installing these LEDs, getting the console put all together, and just basically finishing everything up. So, anyways, guys, go ahead and check out the fifth one, and the link for the fifth one is in the description for this video. And we'll see you